Hi guys, Chox here, and welcome back to the cake decorating playlist. Today I am going to share two tips, do you see them? 2 tips for making icing roses. Let's go have a look. Okay, so the 2 tips that I am going to work with today, this is a large flower tip. This is an Iteco brand, number 124. So it is a large flower tip. Today I'm also going to be working with a Wilton tip, number 102. That has a smaller opening on it, and we'll be able to make smaller roses with that. Also, I'm going to be using 3 different size rose nails. This is a large rose nail, Iteco 907 maybe? This is a Wilton number 9 rose tip, and this is just a little flower pedestal. So I mean, you could tell by the sizes of the tips and the bases what size base you're going to need. You're not going to want to use a big rose tip on a little base because it won't hold it, it won't support it. With the smaller rose tip, you can use a coupler, so it'll make changing colors easier if you're doing a nice bouquet. The big rose tip does not fit in my coupler set. That works with all my other standard tips. So what I do for that is I just cut a bag with a hole big enough so I could slide this right in there and push it out the bottom. So now I have a large rose tip in its own bag. So I'm not going to be changing the color on this. This is just if I'm doing a bouquet of red roses or yellow roses or whatever, I just cut the bag and that's how the rose tip fits. So what I have here is just some leftover icing from my last project, and I don't have anywhere to use it, so it is absolutely perfect to practice with. So that's what we're going to do today, is practice some roses. Another thing you're going to need for roses is some scissors that aren't too sharp. I have tried the cake decorating scissors, those little plastic ones. I find they just fall apart and I can't control them well enough. So I use children's scissors for moving roses. So what I mean is you have a rose on here and you have to take your scissors and move it from the cake, or move it from the rose nail to the cake. Okay, so I've set up my bag with the large tip. I've set up my bag with the coupler for the small tip. And I always keep a damp paper towel around just to keep my tips clean as I'm working with them. I have a medium rose nail, and I have a large rose nail. So we're going to get started with the larger tip because it is easier. So there are 2 different ways that we can do roses with this rose nail. We can do the rose right on the nail, or put a dab of icing on there and stick a little square of wax paper on there. That just helps it to hold still. So if you're doing roses, like a lot of roses for a cake, I would suggest doing it this way if you're going to freeze them, because then you just slide it off, you set it down, you can pop them in your freezer, no problem. So you want to make sure you pushed your icing down, you got a nice firm grip on your bag, and the pressure is just gently pushing that out. The cloth, clean your tip. Okay, so I've got this. What we're going to do, because there are a few different ways to do this, make a little mound. And you see I'm rolling the rose nail between my fingers. So we're just going to start at the top at a nice angle. You want to make sure that that big part of the tip is down onto your rose nail, onto your mound. And you're just going to squeeze gently and go around in a circle. Okay? I'm going to do that again. Squeeze gently, go around in a circle. So you can stop there if you want to have different styles, like different phases of bloom of roses. Now that you've done that, find your seam right there. We're just going to do an upside down U shape. Okay? So squeeze up, down. Squeeze up, down. Perfecting roses takes time, takes practice, and just don't give up. If it looks like a blobby mess, just try again. The great thing about icing is it's pliable. So there is a nice papery rose. Now I'm just going to take this off, set it on my board. And so I had mentioned another way to do a rose is just right, don't stab yourself, is just right on the rose nail itself. So I'm just going to do a little mound to the middle of the petal. Whoop. My icing's getting soft, my hands are getting warm. If you're finding that your icing is getting soft, you can get a cold paper towel with cold water, and just wrap it around, and it'll help the heat from your hand not melt your icing. Also, if you find that, that sometimes if the middle starts wonking a little bit, you can just kind of like tap a little bit, but you don't want to tap too hard because it'll fall right off. If you make a mistake on your rose, just go ahead, scrape it back into your icing container, start again. Okay, so I'm going to do my rose right on the on the rose nail this time. Nice little mound. Around in a circle. Petal, 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 petal. If you're finding that your edges are folding like that, it could be because the top of this is too tight. You may need to open it. Because sometimes as you're washing your tips and stuff, they'll get squished. Or there could be a chunk of butter or shortening up in there. So now I've done my rose. I'm going to take my scissors. Okay. Go in here, but don't completely close it. Kind of turn that rose nail, and voila. I have this on here. I'm going to put it in the row. Take the bottom of your nail. Just hold it there. Close your scissors and pull them out. This technique works really well if you need to put it on a cake right away. If you do need to open your end a little bit, or if something gets, sometimes a little chunk of icing will get caught in there, you can just stick a butter knife in, wiggle it back and forth a little bit. It should open it up. Alright, let's try a couple more here. I'm just going to do it on the wax paper. Dab it on the wax paper. If you have a good firm icing, you can just put your icing tip down, spin it around, spin it around, kind of build up the middle that way, and then start with your, oops, sorry, and then start with your rose petals. My icing's flopping. There we go. These guys are looking like little wild roses. Oops, flopped. If you find that your roses are falling down as you're working on the nail, you can put your whole piping bag into the fridge or freezer for a couple of minutes just to help firm it up. So that's what we're doing right now. Okay, so I've put this in the freezer. I've let it firm up a little bit. My tip here is very cold. Sometimes if you find you get a chunk in there or your icing isn't coming out smoothly, you can run this under warm water and squeeze it until the icing comes out consistently, and then that will help also. So like if it's too floppy, put it in the freezer. If it's too stiff, just run a little underwater. Let's have another go at this. There, that's a lot nicer. See what I'm doing here? Just squeeze around in a circle. Oh, that's standing nice now. And if you're just going to put these in the freezer to firm up, then it doesn't matter. You know, like use your cold icing. Get your shape that you want. Oh, look. Look at that beautiful flower. So we take the scissors just underneath. Don't close them. Spin your rose nail so the rose goes right onto your scissors. I wish I could show you the underside of this. Okay, there we go. That's what it looks like on the bottom. So you'll see I haven't completely cut it yet and my scissors are open. When you go to place it on your cake, you put it down, close your scissors, take your corner of your cake nail, pull it out. Beautiful. This large tip is actually my favorite rose tip to use, just because it's so much easier. So I'm going to show you a flat wild rose, and instead of holding your tip up and down, you want to hold it sideways with the big end pointing in the middle, and it's just a flat squeeze and roll it out. You really want to roll it out like that. It's like a U shape on its side. So there we go. There's one petal, 2 petals, 3 petals, 4 petals. I would leave it like that. Pull it down, and then you need your little pollen stuff in the middle here. Now they got those little pointies, so I'm just using a round tip. There you go. And once this chills, it'll be easier to move on to a cake. When you're making a rose bud, so just like the little bud, not quite an open rose, you want the big part down, and you're just going to do an up and a back, just like a little swoop. Up and a back. So there is your rose bud. You'd put your leaf down here and cover it up that way. So it's so easy. You can also make these in advance. I find them easier to just do on the cake. But if you need to do it in advance, super easy way to do rose buds. Let's do another rose here real quick. Gob it in the middle. And if you guys have any questions about this, or if you want to see something else in more detail, please leave me a message in the comments, and I will do my best to help you figure out what you need to do to make it work. Okay? Cake decorating, it's the icing thing, right? It's like, everybody's like, oh, I've got the best icing recipe. Yeah, but can you make roses with it? That's always my question. So another beautiful rose, and we'll just plop that down. Boop. Uh-oh. Thing about keeping a clean tip as well is you're going to get cleaner edges. I'm going to make a little pile. This is a good thing. This is a good thing to practice too, just going back and forth in your fingers so you get the whole motion. And if you need to adjust it, you're just going to have to wiggle your fingers around and adjust it. I find putting if I'm putting my finger underneath so I can adjust my fingers, so I just hold it under the ledge. There we go. You want to make sure your hand is comfortable on your icing bag, so you're not trying to squeeze out too much or too little icing. Trying to make your hand work harder than it has to is quite often difficult. So we can make this one huge. Let's keep going before my icing gets too warm. There we go. Beautiful rose. Just going to take those scissors underneath, roll it with the fingers. See? Off the rose tip, holding it on the scissors, touch it down, pull the scissors out. Alright, let's have a look at this other tip. Okay, so here we are. We're using a smaller rose nail for a smaller tip. We can use the big one. It's no big deal to use a smaller tip on a bigger rose nail. I'll show you what I mean. So here we are back at the big one, making a pile. Just remember, it's not going to be as big, right? And pile. Putting the middle in there. Oh, my icing's cold. My goodness. My icing's very cold. Little use, and just try to go over those seams that you just did. There we go. Tuck in there. So that is a tiny, tiny, tiny rose, right? So there we go. In comparison, can you see that? So it's almost like we're making little rose buds. But let's move on to the smaller rose now. So The thing about this is you don't have to go out and get a million different things to do your cake decorating. One rose tip, one rose nail. Like, I would suggest the larger one because it is the easiest to use. So same deal with the little rose tip. Make a little pile in the middle. Gotta move these because that's my pile. Squeeze and turn. Squeeze and turn. Now we're going to make the U shape up and over, 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 up and over. So that is a cute, tiny little rose with this cute, tiny little rose tip. So again, just take your scissors, slide them in there, roll that rose tip to place that rose on your scissors, squeeze your scissors shut, hold the tip there, and pull your scissors out. Clean your tip off. Okay, nice clean tip. And get ready for the next one. So if you're going to use wax paper, a little bit on there, get your wax paper on there. Make my little pile. So I am also doing this right-handed in case you're wondering. I'm holding the rose nail with my left hand, and I'm doing the work with the icing with my right hand because I am right-handed. Okay, cute little rose. Let's put it right on the sheet. So if you're having problems making the petals work, try switching hands. You may have some luck with that. And again, if your icing gets a little warm, just stick it in the fridge or freezer for a minute or two to chill it out. Get it pliable. There we go. And all it is just practice, practice, practice. Focus, take your time. Practice with your extra icing so it doesn't go to waste. Oops, my icing ran out there. There we go. Once again, clean your tip. Make sure your fat end is always at the bottom. My icing's getting soft again from holding it. There we go. You can just keep going and making it flatter and flatter. And the great thing about practicing is you just keep going, you just keep doing it, and then you just learn the little angles that you need to do. You learn to move the icing around with confidence. You build up speed. Cute little roses. Oops. So I'm just going to do one with the big tip and show you it's okay. You can still use a smaller rose nail. You just don't have as much room to work on it. Okay. A couple more troubleshooting techniques here. So if you're finding that your petals are curling out It's because your angle is aiming out more. So for a more open flower, you want to open your angle up. Let's get the middle parts in here. I'll show you what I mean. So I've got my angle just a little aimed out a little bit more. So it's giving a very full bloom look, almost like they're about to go. Flat open. My icing's getting warm. And if you want a more closed look, okay, you're going to angle your icing in more. So instead of pulling it out, you're going to push it in more. We'll do the middles here. Oops, that's a bad middle. Next. Do the squish. Middle of the roses. There we go. Now I'm going to tip the top of it in towards the middle of the rose nail a little bit more. So it's going to, see how it cupped it there? See, I'm leaning that top of the tip in a little bit more. Ah, don't slide off, don't slide off, don't slide off. So do you see how that one is kind of pushed in a little bit more, like a rose that's getting ready to bloom open? Ah! So the angle out if you want an open rose, inward if you want a more closed rose. Angle it out a little bit, angle it in a little bit. Well, look at all this great practice we've done. Good job, you guys. All right, you guys, that is it for me today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope these tips and tricks help you with your icing roses. And if you have any other questions, please throw them down into the comment section and I will do my best to help you out. Meanwhile, please click one of these boxes hanging out around my head. It'll take you to YouTube recommended video or to the cake decorating playlist where you can find more of these tips and other things that I've decorated. Love for you to subscribe, hit that bell for notifications, and I will see you next time on the channel. Happy cake decorating. Bye.